Hi guys. So 2 days ago we took Blue Bliss Pellets, which are a kind of variation on the Borax combo. I'm just double checking. I believe what they have is 80 mg of 5-MAPB, 3.5 mg of 4-HOMET, 4-HOMET, whatever you're supposed to call it, and 20 mg of 2-FMA. The dose of 4-HOMET is very small, I feel. I mean, because I take that sometimes, or I don't really take it on its own these days, but that's a very low dose, I guess, because it's like potentiated by the other substances, but it is a low dose. So this is slightly different to the Pink Star pellets. I had the Pink Star pellets before. I don't remember when I took the Pink Star pellets. I don't remember, for a point of comparison, I don't remember what kind of tolerance I had at the time. But I don't think I liked them quite as much, or at least what I remember of the Pink Star pellets was coming up quite hard, quite intensely for a pretty short time, and then kind of feeling like it disappeared quite quickly. I don't actually remember, but I do have a video on those if you're interested in comparing the two. But it's also, of course, relevant how much of a tolerance you have at the time of taking one of these things to, this sort of general category of drugs. So anyway, 2 days ago did the Blue Bliss pellets, which are slightly different. I'm doing this today, 2 days later. I'd normally wait a bit more to see how I was feeling midweek, because that's kind of relevant to the experience. But since we did quite a bit of redosing with 5-MAPB, too much redosing, how I feel on Wednesday is irrelevant to how you would feel if you just took one of these pills. So, or if you just took one of these pills and didn't take anything else with it. So there's no point. It doesn't make a difference, If I had to hazard a guess, my just gut feeling from taking them is that I think if I were to have just taken one of these Blue Bliss pellets, whilst it wouldn't have been a hugely long night or anything crazy, I think it's a bit confusing. It's not actually a come down, is it? We always call it a come down, like how you feel on the Wednesday after taking pills. It's not really the come down, is it? The come down is on the night, but I guess we just refer to it as a come down. Some people say hangover, but I kind of just associate that with alcohol. I guess what it really is the hangover, because it's, the following week, but whatever. Anyway, the come down. I would hazard a guess that it wouldn't be particularly bad at all. In fact, I think from one of these pills, I don't think you would feel much, honestly. Like, I don't know if you'd even really notice it. I think you'd feel probably as if you'd looked after yourself, took supplements, slept well, ate well, stayed positive. I think you'd feel completely normal, like even by Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever. Might not be the case for us due to the redosing, but we'll see. It was a bit stupid. So yeah, we took them, and we were thinking beforehand. I mentioned in previous videos, I don't want to say it directly, but there's a kind of trick you can do if you don't have one of those time lock safes. There's a way you can utilize a certain service to hypothetically make your drugs go away for a couple of days and then come back to you a couple of days later. Which is pretty good. It's a pretty useful way of making sure you don't overdo something. If you have a shitload of something and you don't want to take all of it. And we were contemplating doing this, but we were a bit nervous to do it because 5-MAPB is no longer available. And so, which is sad. It's very sad to me. I really like 5-MAPB, but I think it's one of those ones that you can't get anymore, unfortunately, which is a real shame, because I think regularly abusing other similar drugs is much worse for you in my subjective experience. But Yeah, that's happened. Anyway, so I was a bit, we were a bit sort of hesitant to do this, and I was thinking, probably a good idea because the redosing temptation is quite high, and then we ended up thinking, oh, one sec. Sorry about that. My girlfriend didn't know I was doing a video, so she called out to me. She called out Papa, which was rather embarrassing. She did that once when I was working. I was in a meeting, and she didn't know. And she walked in her pyjamas, in like Mickey Mouse pyjamas, and was like, Papa! I was like, Jesus Christ, get out. Shut the fuck up. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so what was I saying? Basically, lesson learned, number one, first lesson learned, if I'm ever considering doing this trick to avoid excessive redosing, do it. Definitely, it would be a good idea to do it. And I've firmly learned that lesson now. Having sort of softly learned that lesson in the past, I've now decided, yes, that's definitely the right thing to do. So we were contemplating that, and then we thought, we'll probably be mature, we're adults now, be alright. So we took the pills, and we still had a good amount of 5-MePB around. The come up was quite quick. We were hanging out, chatting, recording some stuff, and feeling like, I don't know, it started to feel quite. Sorry, I'm a bit slow today, by the way. I've just woke up not long ago, but it took probably about half an hour, and then we started to feel it, and it felt a bit intense at first. I think we felt the speed, the stim before anything. I don't really know anything about 2FMA, but we started to feel that first, and it was a bit unpleasant. Like, I think we were chatting, we were recording an episode of our show, and it was really good, and we were really enjoying it. And so we were kind of like getting a bit of a buzz out of that, and we were laughing quite a lot and quite excited and having quite a lot of fun. So I think that was partially why we were getting like really excited about that before coming up. And then it just felt like too much. Like, I felt like, and you just feel it in your chest, and you're like, fucking hell, like I feel like my heart's beating really fast, and it felt quite strong in that regard, and we were both getting a bit stressed out. So we tried to just sort of calm ourselves down, smoke a bit of CBD, and that went away fairly quickly. Like, it was okay. We started to feel a bit more normal. We were getting a bit stressed because we were thinking we've never taken these before, and it feels a bit weird, but it was all right in the end. That lasted probably 20 minutes. Then started to feel quite nice, started to get a bit of a buzz on, started to feel like a bit more kind of euphoric. And I saw somebody on Reddit said this, and it's true. I think that some people would say this doesn't compare to MDMA at all, but you're more likely to say that if you've only done MDMA 2 or 3 times, or even, probably like 8 or 9 times, and it still feels really incredible and like, this ridiculously powerful, almost like sort of psychedelic experience, like when the first times you do MDMA. If you're someone who's used MDMA quite regularly, or perhaps abused it, as we did in the past, quite severely, then this feels pretty similar to a sort of mediocre and okay MDMA experience. There's the kind of ones where you wait like a year or 6 months and it's like mind-blowing, and then there's ones where maybe you wait 2 or 3 months or something, or the MDMA is not that good or whatever, and it's still a great night, but it's not unbelievable. So that was how this felt. These pills, they were like a sort of maybe a 6 out of 10 MDMA experience, and it was a different feeling. It felt I wouldn't say it felt quite as serene as MDMA. There's a feeling of MDMA that when it's good, that is kind of, I find, like oddly clear-headed and kind of like heavenly. Like when you take the right amounts and you haven't got a tolerance or anything, it's not, doesn't, sometimes it doesn't feel like a drug. It feels sort of like being in heaven, you know. It feels like being like you just feel so good and pure. And I wouldn't say that these pills, these Blue Bliss pills, had like a dirty high or anything. It wasn't like that. It felt fairly clean. It felt quite nice. It was a good, you know, feeling. But it didn't have that. It didn't have that quality to it, I guess. Maybe it felt a bit like taking MDMA that had a bit of something else in it, or something like that. Definitely good, though. Would easily do the job if you were like, I don't really take these, in fact I don't at all take these kind of things to like go out or anything, but I think for people who take these things for like concerts or going to parties or whatever, I think this would be pretty good, because you might not be quite as fully like emotionally, you know, with MDMA it's a very like sort of personal, spiritual, psychedelic experience sometimes. And in a way, these Blue Bliss pellets, they might be a bit more appropriate because for like a kind of more casual setting, because you don't always need to feel like that, and you might be around people you don't know that well, and it's just, you know, more, you just kind of want to like get a buzz on and feel good and enjoy your night. So in that sense, great. The buzz itself was very good. We were hanging out, listening to stuff. I don't think music sounded as good like as it does on MDMA. We were enjoying listening to some music, and then but also kind of chopping and changing it a lot. And I think this was one of many ways in which you can kind of feel the stimulant underneath, where there's a slight there isn't a slight uneasiness because you feel pretty good, you feel pretty euphoric from the 5-MePB and everything, but maybe just a bit of an inclination to want things, or to fiddle around with things, or to try to change things, or to sort of get aimlessly kind of excited about things, and to have an energy that is maybe an energy in you that you feel a need to dissipate in some way by doing something. And with MDMA, I find you don't really have that. Like, you're more in the moment. I guess that's the difference, is you're just very present, and you can kind of just sit there smiling and just enjoying someone's company, and you don't need maybe to constantly be doing something. So there was a bit of that, a feeling of like, you know, keep this buzz going by like doing stuff and listening to stuff and changing the songs and chatting about this and talking about this. Oh, have you seen this? Have you heard of this? Blah, blah, blah. Let's go and do this, etc., etc. And a hint more manic than maybe on MDMA. So there was that. And I'm checking my notes because I wrote down some notes of stuff that so yeah, it lasted a decent amount of time, I would say. I didn't feel the sudden crash that I remember feeling with the pink star pellets. Again, that could be tolerance related, but no, I didn't feel like a kind of sudden crash. We had a couple of times where, you know, where you start to feel a bit crappier, but really it's not the substances, it's that you need to do something else. It's that you need to kind of like, you know, we would have that, and then we'd like go out for a walk or something, or go outside for a smoke, and then suddenly feel good again, you know. And I think that's a very important thing when you're doing stuff like this, is not to fall into the trap of thinking that everything you're feeling is chemical, because you get used to it. You know, when you take MDMA, for example, the first few times, you can literally read like a fucking washing machine instructions manual and be like, this is amazing. This is so, wow, look at all the work that went into this. This is beautiful. But that's at the beginning, you know, that's when you first start taking it. And also in the first part of you know, when you're coming up kind of, and you're really peaking, you can kind of do anything and feel great. but you forget that, like, you know, you have to kind of give yourself something. You have to give yourself something to feel good about, to have a good, you know, people often think, okay, I'm coming down, I need more drugs or whatever, or I need to smoke, or I need something. In reality, you just, a lot of the time, need to, like, you need to do something. You need to think of something interesting to do, or to talk about, or get yourself moving, or like change the music or whatever, and you start to feel good again. And it can last a lot longer when you think of it that way. A lot of the time you think you're coming down, and you're just not really, you know, there's ages to go. So yeah, it was a bit like that kind of, you know, and it was good. It all felt quite comfortable. And then after, I guess, about 5 hours, we decided to redose some 5-MePB, and we had, like, prepared a specific amount to redose that we had decided upon. And at this point also, been taking a lot of supplements, been being generally, like, quite healthy. And, well, not healthy, it's not a healthy experience, but as in, we've been being quite, you know, sensible, taking supplements and drinking a lot of water, and just, you know, whatever, like, doing all the pre-roll shit and all of that, and fairly organised about doing that. That was good. And then, yeah, had this amount that we had sort of designated to be, you know, the maximum kind of redose amount, which, needless to say, did not end up being all that we redosed, this amount that we'd set aside. So we had this, and yeah, it's nasty going up. Well, it's not nasty going up, but it's just so thin and sort of powdery that it just feels like it's very hard to keep it in your nose. It just goes right up, and like feels like it's going right into your throat, and kind of like, it sort of tickles your throat and gets in, and it feels like you haven't really absorbed it properly. And I kept, like, kind of like breathing it out, and so it was really annoying and hard to keep it in there. It doesn't burn a lot or anything. It's just I mean, this is irrelevant essentially to the Blue Bliss experience, by the way. I should say at this point, really, if you're solely watching this just to know about how the Blue Bliss pellets are, then there is some more stuff actually that's relevant to the pills themselves that I will get into. But yeah, anyway, at this point we decided to have more, and basically it all gets a bit weird here, a bit sort of personal, but whatever. We were having a chat on it, you know, in the middle of the session. We were having a chat about just stuff relating to us, our relationship and everything, and things are really good between us nowadays, and in the past they weren't. Basically, like, we had, in some ways, a mixed bag of a relationship, you know, very good in some ways but really terrible in others, and a history of very bad habits and bad lifestyle choices and stuff. And anyway, yeah, and these days things are really good, and we were talking about stuff related to our life, our relationship, our sex life and stuff, and able to talk very openly, which is really cool. I think, like, when you talk, you know, very openly, perhaps for her that's easier anyway in day-to-day life, but I guess I feel a need to project a certain level of, like, confidence that is not always real, you know. Like, I think as a man, it's like, it feels important to appear confident and to appear secure in yourself, you know, particularly if in some ways you're not, you know, because if you have things to feel, like, I feel sometimes bad about myself, like, physically, you know, I feel bad about my appearance and stuff, and I feel also, I guess I have self-esteem issues from being younger, and just feeling, but not necessarily physically per se, but just feeling, I guess, like, bad about myself as a man, kind of, you know, from I think just a lot of leftover sort of insecurities from when I was growing up, and I feel the need to hide that because I feel it's unattractive, it's off-putting, you know. I feel it's like not a grown up or masculine trait to be sort of insecure in that way, and also because I just want to. I don't. I sometimes think. I sometimes feel it's inappropriate to be, in general, to be very neurotic. And I used to be very neurotic. I used to be anxious about everything all the time. I was always worried about impending disaster and stuff. And I started to feel, because, in our relationship, I'm kind of the leader. I fall more into the leader role, sort of the man of the house, I guess. But like, in some households, that's the woman of the house. Especially these days, I think it's actually more common that the wife or girlfriend is more kind of like the one in charge of the relationship, and the one who's kind of the one who kind of guides things, more of the leader in the relationship. That seems to be the case nowadays, but that's not the case for us. And so in general, not just in relation to myself, but in general, I feel a need to not be neurotic. And I've been around a lot of people who are, and I guess, to be honest, like when I was growing up, my dad was like very, very neurotic, and still is quite anxious about his health, quite anxious about the future, always stressed about money, even though we were fine. And I think it's very bad for you to be around that all the time. And I at a certain point a few years ago, it just began to make me very angry. And there's other people in my life who are like that, and I've been like that a lot. And at a certain point, I just thought, this is just wrong. Like, you shouldn't be like this. When people look to you for guidance, when they look to you to see what's going on or what's around the corner, or they look to you to know how to feel, you should, I think, pull yourself together a bit and be stronger. Especially when people might, in some ways, kind of need you. They might not have the same options or opportunities or platforms or possibilities as you, or they might not be in as easy of a position as you in some ways, and they depend on you. I think you have a bit of a responsibility to be kind of stronger and to make people feel safe. So that extends to a lot of areas of my life, I guess. So I really try not to engage in neurotic thoughts, and that's been really good. It's been good for me, and I know generally the idea is that you should feel all of your feelings, and you should discuss all of your feelings, and you should work through all of your feelings. And I don't agree with that. I think that's an extreme concept. I don't think it's entirely wrong, but we have this idea, I guess, from like the 1970s onwards and kind of going through until today, that that's the most important thing, that everything you feel is really important, and that everything you feel about your childhood and everything you worry about and every insecurity you feel, that this is all so important, and that you need to talk about all of it, and that you need to deal with all of it. And I definitely don't think that's entirely true. I think there can very often be truth in that, and it is very often true. But I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think there are some things where you think, this thing bothers me, but it's not really, there's not much point dwelling on it. It's not going to go anywhere, or it's not going to help me. It's not going to help anybody else thinking about it too much. I can move that idea around in my head a little bit and consider it and give it some thought and see if there's any way I can deal with it. And if not, then who gives a shit, really? There's things that bother everybody, and like some of them are not productive to think about. And the same with childhood stuff. I think there's some things that happen in your childhood that it can be very useful to think about. It can be very useful to understand why they happened and how they affected you growing up, although sometimes it can be easy to say, that's why I'm like this, because of this. Sometimes I see people who had certain experiences as children that I didn't have, and they go, therefore that's why I'm like a sex addict now, for example. That's why I like look at loads of porn, or that's why I struggle with relationships, or that's why. And I think, well, it's very likely it is. That's highly possible that is why you have those problems. But I have some of those problems, and I didn't have that particular experience that they had, you know. So if I had had that experience, regardless of whether or not it was the cause of these particular problems, I would probably just assume it was, you know. I would say, yeah, this thing happened to me when I was a kid, therefore that's why I'm like this. And you don't always know, you know, but it can be very useful to think about those things. So I think people fall sometimes into one extreme or the other, where they don't do that at all. They don't even consider, they just don't refuse to think about or talk about their feelings or their past or anything else in any way. And then, yeah, I do think there's an opposite extreme that developed in the kind of like psychology community, which is like an obsession, like an absolute obsession with dealing with everything through feelings, when sometimes you can deal with things by saying, fuck that, like I have a life to live now, I have people to help, I need to help myself, and I need to sort myself out, and I have things I need to do, and there's not enough hours in the day to talk about every weird thing that happened when I was a kid. And you know, like improving your circumstances now and trying to feel better now, worrying about, like, you know, how you feel now and how you can deal with that now in a present way, might have more value than going once a week for 10 years to therapy and crying for an hour every time, and leaving and remembering all of these things and being brought back vividly to all these horrible experiences, and carrying those with you for the rest of the week until your next session, and then you do it all over again. And I know people will probably disagree with this, but perhaps it's because I'm not being clear that, you know, I think that there is value in that. I think it's good to do that a little bit, but yeah, I think doing it so much is, at a certain point, all you're really doing is dredging up, you know, things that you feel bad about and continuously feeling bad about them. But I do think, yeah, if you've got a lot of that stuff you've never thought about, you've never processed, you've never dealt with, it definitely can be very cathartic to do it to a degree. I think with all things, it just requires balance. Anyway, that's a very long-winded way of getting to the point that there are certain things that I don't like to say, because I just feel I don't think it's good for her to see me in that way. And maybe also it's more vain than that. Maybe I just sometimes don't want to be seen in that way. I just want to be seen as like confident and strong and whatever. So but then there can become a problem where, in trying to appear that way, and in not being fully open with yourself and with others, you might cause harm to other people. You know, your behavior might unwittingly hurt someone, or make them feel that they're doing something, or lead them to some other conclusion, because they think, well, it couldn't possibly be that, because this person seems so sure of themselves, so it must be something to do with me, or it must be something else, or, you know, whatever. So that's a prime example of, you know, where it might be wrong to try to, you know, to try to be strong about everything. It might not actually be helpful. It might not be a good thing. So anyway, we were talking about all this stuff. It was nice. It was good to be able to be really open, and just it's interesting when you take these kind of empathogens and stuff, that you stuff just comes out of you, and you think, yeah, I do feel that way, I guess. I never think about the fact that I feel that way. I never really acknowledge that I feel that way, because I don't really want to, because my ego in day-to-day life is kind of crafting a narrative about who I am and how I feel, and I'm swallowing it hook, line and sinker because it's easy and it's appealing. It's like junk food, you know. It's just like, yeah, sure, that's correct. That's who I am. That's how I feel. You don't question it. You don't bother, because you don't need to. And I guess because that's just what guides you through your day-to-day life, and it's too difficult. It feels too difficult. and like it requires too much presence of mind to really question it and think about it. But in the back of your mind, you kind of know how you really feel, you know. And it's interesting when you take these substances, it comes out, and you think, oh yeah, you know, that's the truth, really. That's more true than probably what I would normally say. So yeah, so that happened, and it was really good. It was really positive. Very, you know, healthy discussion. But then, and I'm reticent to blame the pills specifically for this, because I understand there's a lot of personal, circumstantial stuff that goes into this, or that went into this. But if you see my video on amphetamines, then I mentioned in that years ago, we fell into quite heavily abusing amphetamines and GHB, and having a lot of what's known as chemsex, right? And then it became porn became very heavily involved. We both grew up, like, from a pretty young age, very badly addicted to and obsessed with porn, and both in our own ways had quite big issues with porn, which are like much better now. And in general, in that regard, we're just a hell of a lot healthier. Like the past few years, you know, we don't really have these issues, but we used to have like big problems with it. Both watching porn like constantly whenever the other one wasn't around, and both quite like perverted and sort of a bit broken sexually, I would say. And still always had like a good sex life between the two of us and interest in one another, but like you can't really have like a healthy life or a healthy relationship when you're looking at porn all the time. So anyway, when we got into speed and all of this, we used to do these long benders, and we'd look at a lot of porn and do weird shit, and like it was a sort of like kind of weird mutual back and forth kind of porn cuckoldry, weird sort of, almost like it was like a I don't even want to say it was entirely bad, because I think it was a way at the time of like confronting a lot of stuff that was going on behind the scenes, but like kind of it was like looking into this side of one another and really getting in there, you know, and fully getting inside one another's kind of like sexual psyches, and confronting it in a way that at the time felt very liberating and very good, and very like, wow, this stuff that we sort of don't talk about, suddenly we talk about it together, and it's like an experience we're having together. And there's a line, you know, where like until that line, it was like a very weirdly, in some ways, it felt like a very weirdly positive and liberating thing. The problem is that by engaging that, you then create more problems that you might need liberating from. You know, you create further problems, so it's like a kind of self-perpetuating thing. There may be a point at which it was good, or had been up to a point, you know, it was good, but it definitely became, you know, too much. We got obsessed with doing this and with these huge amphetamine benders, and it's very addictive. And I would say in terms of like pleasure, like there's nothing I enjoyed as much as that, because it lasts for like 3 or 4 days, and the speed just gives you so much energy, and I really liked the buzz from it. And then you take the other stuff with it, but I'm not recommending it at all, and I would hate to think that anyone hears me say that and thinks that's like an endorsement, or thinks, oh, I'd like to try that. I really don't think you should. It's like very addictive as an experience, and the negative effects that like empathogens and MDMA and stuff like that have on you, I think is obvious quite quickly, because like the following Tuesday or Wednesday you feel so bad, and you know that you've kind of fucked up, you know. But it's more like chemical. It's more like noticeably chemical. You know, you feel like fuck, man, I feel like so sad and so angry right now, and clearly that's because I took too much. And then usually a few days later you start to feel yourself again, and if you do it too much, those few days become maybe a few weeks, and then you can develop long-term problems for sure. But with all the speed and stuff like that, it's more deceptive, it's more sneaky, and it starts to do a number on you psychologically as well as chemically. And the chemical part is more subtle. Hang on, I'm going to pause this recording in case it starts to lag. Yeah, the chemical part of it is more subtle, I think, at first with speed, although you notice your impulse control is diminished and you start to want things a lot more, when you're taking it all the time, and your dopamine starts to sort of go a bit haywire, your reward system starts to go a bit haywire, and you're kind of a bit whatever. We would find that we'd do all of this, and then in the week when we were sober, like, we'd just want to look at porn all the time, and we started to become like obsessed with drugs as well, and obsessed with porn, and obsessed with like pleasure and dopamine. And for some periods of this, like, we didn't have work, and other periods we were working. There was a period when we first moved to Spain where we were doing this, and like, I was working a bit and she didn't have a job at that time, and we started just taking drugs like every day. We started taking not speed every day, but we were taking like GHB or Phenibut or Kratom or something every day. And I think that was partially because you just become obsessed with like feeling good and with pleasure and with doing stuff. And so we were just becoming, I guess, like kind of like dirty people, and becoming a bit crazy. You start to go a bit crazy and you don't realize it. And I've been reading these recent allegations about Kanye West, and I always loved Kanye West, like, growing up listening to his music, huge inspiration of mine, but more and more I find it, and for me it wasn't, like the MAGA stuff or whatever. I don't care about things like that. I'm not someone who's politically. I listen to a lot of people who are, most artists are like basically like radical leftists and stuff, and I don't agree with that, but I don't care. I'm not really that bothered about people's sort of glib political statements or whatever. It's not something that bothers me. The stuff about Jewish people was very ignorant, and it's not the fact that he said something that could be considered racist or whatever. It was the way he said it just really annoyed me. I found it like just such so lazy, I guess. I don't mind if someone holds a racist opinion. I'm not like hysterical about that. I don't think it's the big deal that other people do. I just think just try, like, put a bit of effort into what you're saying and try to formulate your thoughts. And when you're that famous, like, just saying stuff like that without thinking about it, just so ignorant and stupid. And it annoyed me to see that people got so excited to rally around it, when it's like, really, you think this is someone that represents you, someone who writes like 7-word tweets about people who he doesn't give a shit about. He's angry because basically some of them ripped him off over some fucking shoe deal or something that means nothing to anybody. And it's all so narcissistic beyond belief, and more I just started to, anyway, this is fucking irrelevant, this has nothing to do with the video, but seeing his continuously more ridiculous behaviour, and seeing his recent absolute decline, where I think even people that supported him through everything, and I wouldn't say I was in that camp, but I was someone who I didn't really care about much of this, his recent decline into like complete depravity, walking around with his new wife with like her tits out and stuff, and letting his daughter eat sushi off a naked woman's body at some party, with his little girl there, like, there's like some naked woman with sushi on her on the table, and getting like sucked off in public, and you listen to his stuff, it's just like blowjobs and arses, and so he's a grown man, And then there's all this new stuff that's come out. I don't know if it's true, but it's disgusting. The accusations are disgusting. And, you know, it was funny in a way. You know, he had that song NeXTC, and it's kind of funny. Like, he's talking about wanting to shag his sisters-in-law and stuff. And because a lot of people want to shag them, right? Like, you know, people, they're attractive. Like, so you hear it and you kind of think, that's funny. And you think, well, it is funny. And you know, but when you really think about it, when you think about what kind of person would say that about their family members, their direct family members, it's kind of nuts. And of course, he's an artist, and he's trying to provide entertainment to other people and be completely free and crazy and whatever. But some of the stuff that's come out recently is like really disgusting. And I think in general, the last few years of behaviour have been like absolutely disgusting. And I'm pretty convinced, as with the behaviour of Diddy, that a lot of this is fueled by amphetamines, and that doesn't excuse it, because a lot of people take amphetamines and don't become like that. In fact, I knew a guy who used meth for ages. He was like addicted to meth, and he said he used to watch meth, take meth and watch porn for hours, because you just become obsessed with porn when you're on like meth and speed and stuff. And Kanye is apparently absolutely obsessed with porn, like watches it like all the time, and like shows it to people and stuff. These are some of the accusations, you know. And this is a guy who a couple of years ago was going on about like what a Christian he is and stuff, and he's talking about starting a porn company, and he's comparing himself to Jesus, and it's disgusting. It's really disgusting. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible, and he shouldn't talk about God or Jesus. It's just horrible. And the people he associates with, the people he hangs out with, the people he defends. Travis Scott, like, I mean, what a disgusting human being, like an utterly disgusting, worthless human being. And to associate with someone like that, and to try and take the moral high ground on any issue, and to start talking about other groups of people in that way, it's like, look at yourself, mate. It's pathetic and disgusting. I really kind of despise him now. And it's just sad and pathetic, and kind of also a bit infuriating to watch. And to see how people bend over backwards to justify it all. Anyway, yeah, that's not what this video should be about, sorry. But when I see stuff like that, I'm almost certain that it's amphetamines and meth. I'm trailing off. This guy who I know, who was addicted to meth, and he said, I was like, right, so you must have gotten into pretty freaky shit when you're having these like porn binges, taking meth and stuff. And he was like, no. He was like, he said that never happened to me. He was like, I just always liked like just like blonde women with big tits and stuff, just getting fucked, you know, just normal porn. I was like, wow, that's fair enough. That shows strength of character, but that's very rare. And I think most people, if there's something, even a kernel of something a bit weird or perverted or devious in you, I think these kind of drugs will bring it out. So someone like Diddy, who is clearly like a manipulator, who loves using sex for power over people and loves blackmail and loves all this and watching people be humiliated and degraded and stuff, clearly taking drugs all the time, it doesn't mean it created that in him, doesn't mean it's not his fault, doesn't diminish any of the responsibility, but clearly that really brought that to the fore and made it basically his life. His life became about sexual manipulation and coercion and degradation and using sex to feel more powerful than others. And again, like, a normal, nice, pure-hearted person is not gonna have that. They might start smoking meth all the time and become obsessed with like being pissed on, or with feet, or with like, you know, old grannies or something. You know, people get into all sorts of weird stuff, and most of the time it's not evil. But I think that with these people, they're abusing a lot of meth, a lot of speed, a lot of, like, you know, they have access to drugs so easily. And I think it's a fairly clear explanation for why Kanye has changed so much in the last like 2 or 3 years. I think after the divorce, he just started using shitloads of stim. Maybe it's coke or speed or whatever it is, or meth, I don't know, but it's mental and it's disgusting. Deantwood, another example. Jesus Christ, the Deantwood accusations are disgusting, like mental, absolutely mental behaviour. So to me, I kind of think that stimulants like cocaine, speed, and meth, definitely meth, but also cocaine and speed, while some people can use them and be okay, and I know there will probably be people who watch this channel who like think, nah, you know, I use speed or I use stimulants and they're okay and whatever, and it may well be the case for many people, but by and large I think these drugs are evil and demonic, and I don't mean demonic literally, but effectively demonic, and really bad and very sneaky, and bring out the worst in human beings, and I think they shouldn't exist, and I don't think people should take them. I think they're really bad. And perhaps I might be allowing my own experience to colour that, but yeah. So anyway, we were talking about all this shit, and then it felt like the speed was lasting longer than the 5-MePB, and we started to feel quite like kind of feel the speed quite a lot, the stim, whatever it is, and we started talking about when we used to do all this stuff, all this speed and GHB, which we had clearly decided in recent years is like not a good thing to do anymore, and we're fully past all of that, and we haven't touched anything like that, any kind of dopamine drug, not 3-MMC, not coke, not speed, not stimulants, in years, and been completely fine with that. And we remember it and think, oh, that was weird, it was fun at the time, but it's a good job that we don't kind of do any of that anymore, because we were going a bit mad. Unfortunately, we never became bad people, we never became evil, but we became probably a risk to ourselves, to be honest. Like, we started thinking about weird stuff, like bringing other people into our, sex life and stuff that I'm really glad we never did. Well, there was one incident that was extremely embarrassing. I'm not going to get into on here. Maybe sometime I will, but there was one extremely disastrous and terrible incident. But again, we never did anything, like bad, and we never did anything that was like super regrettable and whatever. And it felt like, it had its time and place, but definitely you can't live like that. And it's, it's mental anyway to stay up for 4 days. Must be terrible for you. We used to live above a sex shop, and there was a guy who worked in there who just looked fucked up, man. You could just see, like, it was just years of like partying at like sex clubs and staying up to, and he was just like, his face was just so fucked, and like he looked so tired all the time, and every time you saw him he was like sort of twitching and just looked like he was, like just in this never-ending quest for like meaningless pleasure, and it goes nowhere except just fucking you up and breaking you, really, eventually. And you're better off without it, and life is better without it. But I'm conscious of the fact that I'm talking about so many things that are completely irrelevant to this video. So for my usual subscribers, that might be all right. But if anyone has tuned in just to get a review of the pills, I'm sorry. I've had comments about this before, how these are not trip reports, these are not reviews. Sorry. This is just the way I describe my experience. Anyway, so then we started talking about this, and we were like, oh yeah, it was really great when we used to do that. And then we started saying, yeah, we should do this again. We should do speed and G again. I really miss it. Let's do it again. Let's fucking, let's start doing it. It will be great. And which is mental, because we've never thought about that. We've never considered it. We couldn't do that anyway, because we have a dog now, and it's like, you can keep the dog awake for like 4 days, we just would never do that. We just, it would just be, mental. So we were talking about this a lot, and it's strange because we've never had that thought on any kind of like empathogen. Whenever we take 5-MePB, whenever we take an MDMA, we get really excited about life and stuff. We never have the thought of doing speed and GHB again and doing these like benders and amphetamine benders and stuff. So it was very strange that this was happening. And then the more we started talking about it, we were kind of like obsessing over it. We couldn't stop talking about it. And again, it was like on speed. What used to happen is at first we would do speed, and we would stay up for like a day or so, and then towards the end we would start getting a bit like, we'd start getting a bit weird and compulsive and sort of dirtier and whatever, especially when we took the GHB. But then the more we did these speed and GHB sessions, the quicker that started to happen. And it got to a point where one time we started the session, and within about 10 minutes we were already chatting about all this shit, and you just start obsessing over it. Like, you get obsessed, and it becomes kind of like quite sort of childish and ridiculous, you're just like obsessively talking rubbish about like, whatever, like stuff you're sort of obsessed with. And so then this was happening the other night. We just kept talking about doing speed and GHB again, like obsessively and kind of inanely. Like, there wasn't really any point to the conversation. We were just chatting like shit basically about this. And then we started thinking, maybe we should do that now, like, we were like, it's a real shame we don't have any GHB. Thank fuck we, don't and didn't. And we started thinking, yeah, man, like, we should maybe like do this now. And then we tried to sort of simulate this experience that we used to have, we redosed more 5-MePB, which was like more than we were planning. And at this point, I don't know how much it was. It was quite a lot, like big lines of it. We redosed more, which we weren't planning on doing, and just lost track of that basically. And I remember we did that because we were like, let's have some more, and then we'll, start doing all this weird shit. And so we did. And then I remember starting to feel it and thinking, it's quite a nice buzz. And there was a part of me very strongly was like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, we should not be looking at porn. That's mental, like absolutely mental. And then there was this other part of me, and again, I'm hesitant to blame the speed in the pills for this, because I don't think that would be fair. Like, I think for most people who don't have this track record, I just don't think this would come up in any way. I don't think they would notice this. But for us, it was relevant because we don't take that stuff anymore, and it definitely has that effect, or can have that effect. It has the potential for that effect, especially if you are that way inclined. And so, there was these two competing feelings. This one obsessive, dopamine, pleasure-seeking, kind of perverted kind of side, and then the sort of emotionally sort of open, present, kind of empathetic, chilled out, non-egoic, empathogen side, kind of competing. And unfortunately, probably due to the sort of fast food nature of it and the ready accessibility of these kinds of feelings and drives, and the sort of fervent determination of the stimulant side, that kind of won, So we started putting stuff on, and we were trying to do this shit we used to do, and where, we sort of look at things that the other one likes and stuff, and it's all weird psychologically. And we started trying, and we persisted with this, even though clearly both of us were having a pretty awful time, but I guess both of us in our heads were like, yeah, this is good, this is fine, we're enjoying this, yeah, she's probably having a great time, and she was thinking, yeah, he's probably having a great time, and stuff. And I think both of us were having an awful time, and it was really weird, and it was really disgusting. And there was like the part of us that was like, yeah, let's do this, click on that, look at this, open this, blah blah blah. And then there was the other part that was just like fully clear and being like, this is disgusting. Like, the fact that we're doing this is disgusting and kind of sad, because we're not like this anymore. And the videos themselves are disgusting. Like, it's horrible. It's not, most of it, when you really look at it, when you're clear-headed, like, it's not sexy. It's like horrible. when you see people and they're like, look, you know, you're watching them and they're like looking into each other's eyes and stuff, and they're like having it, and it's like, I shouldn't be seeing this. It was a feeling I was like, I shouldn't be seeing these people doing this. Like, I really shouldn't be seeing this, and it's not sexy at all. It certainly wasn't at that moment, and it has, of course, this weird pull. You know, your monkey brain is just like fixated on it and transfixed by it. But there was too much of the sort of non-monkey part of us there, you know, just thinking like, ugh. And it, you know, we wasted a long time on this. In the end, sorry about some of this is kind of disgusting. I'm sorry. Or a bit just too, you know, direct. But basically, in the end, we just like, we were like, should we just turn this off? And then just sort of, you know, just carried on by ourselves. And that was much more like normal and enjoyable. And it was actually like easier to, you know, like just to not look at it. And it had been, then we realised that we'd wasted like a really long time, and we both felt afterwards we were very depressed. We were like, what did we do, man? Like, we could have just chilled out, and if we're gonna, you know, take a sort of ill-advised redose, it would be better to not, you know, waste all of it on doing that. It's such a weird waste of our night. And so we both felt very bad and quite depressed afterwards, because then it was like, right, we've got to go to sleep now, you know. So we sort of felt pretty shit, really, and tried to sort of pick ourselves up and be like, oh well, you know, because in the grand scheme of things, who gives a shit? Like, again, it's another example of something you can be neurotic about, or you can go, we're fucking fine. Like, one day something really bad will happen. This isn't the kind of shit we should really dwell on too much. But 2 valuable lessons learned. One about redosing and making sure the temptation isn't, you know, it's not available. And 2 would be, it's definitely not a good idea for us to start doing all that freaky shit again. And it feels, the reason I say demonic is because it feels like that voice of Satan whispering in your ear. It's something where, you know, you kind of know, like, even now, if I'm being honest, like, even though it was a bad experience, and even though I'm saying it, yeah, it's definitely bad, we start taking like speed and GHB and looking at all this porn again, and I know that, and that's true, but there's like there's a voice whispering in my ear, and remembering like what we were watching, and being like, oh, it was kind of horny, wasn't it? And like, you know, you would enjoy that, wouldn't you? And like, what about this? And there's all this different stuff you can look at, and all these drugs you can take and stuff, and it's like a sort of like Satan, you know, whispering in your ear, trying to sort of tempt you, and it's weird. It's weird how deceptive it can be, and how manipulative it can be. And so, for that reason, I don't want to take anything that has amphetamines in again. I want to just avoid stimulants, full stop, because I think for us, yeah, there's just bad associations with them. So yeah, it's a very, very long-winded way of explaining that I think the fact that it contains a stimulant, I guess, I don't know about 2-FMA, but I guess like an amphetamine stimulant, the fact that it contains that does mean that this is not a replica of the MDMA experience, because you might, some people do, but you most likely would not, even if you were that way inclined or had done so in the past, would probably not get into that kind of stuff if you just took MDMA. I've certainly never had even an inkling of a thought or feeling, and the 5-MAPB part of the night made that experience particularly horrible and disgusting to both of us. So, you know, yeah, I think that is probably, to me, the most important difference. It's not MDMA. These pills are not MDMA. The Borax combo, it's not MDMA. It is in many ways very similar, but that to me is a crucial difference. But again, that really depends on your circumstances, and that may or may not be relevant to you. And in fact, for some people, it may not be such a bad thing. You know, if you're living a more, you know, single social life or whatever, then, you know, I don't know. But it's important to note. yeah. So what else? Yeah. Oh man, our dog kept like checking on us, and it was really sweet. And she normally, like, she goes to bed really early. Like, she's like, she's a bit older, and like she really likes to go to bed really early. And like, we always sort of, tuck her in and whatever, and then we go and watch TV and play games and stuff. And she never gets, she goes to bed and she's in bed. That's it. And there's been times, for example, where we've stayed up quite late and we're watching TV or whatever, and she doesn't care, and she sleeps for anything. I mean, she'll sleep with like, loud TVs on and stuff. And the other night, she kept coming in, and it was really weird. It was like she's never done this before at all, and she kept coming in, and it was like she was checking on it. It was like, because she's very, very emotionally perceptive. Like, she really is a special dog, honestly. Like, she's part collie, part retriever, and like, she's really, really, really special, and a very kind dog, and just very perceptive. And it was like she kept coming in, like she could sense there was a weird energy. She could sense there was something wrong with us. I truly believe we really, really are. We know her well. Like, it really seemed like she knew in the latter part of the night there was something wrong with us. There was something bad about our energy, and she just knew that it was just something wasn't right. And she kept, and we kept taking her back to bed and tucking her in. And normally she kind of does what we tell her. Like, if we say, come on, lie down, she'll just stay there. And she came in like 4 or 5 times. Like, she was trying to sort of interrupt, and it was really kind of amazing. It was really sweet. Yeah. So even she could, sense the sort of vaguely demonic energy creeping in. Yeah, and then another thing that happened was, I developed this absolutely foul taste in my mouth. It was only me that had this. I developed this foul taste in my mouth, like utterly disgusting. This completely, it was I guess just the taste of 5-MAPB kind of. It was like a metallic taste, but also the taste of chemicals, like powdered chemicals. But I hadn't put it in my mouth, and it was, everything tasted of it. It was like my whole sense of taste and smell, and that lasted all the way until the next day. It was really annoying because I made food. I made like pizzas and stuff, and normally my favorite thing the next day is just to eat loads of food, and like that kind of helps, when you feel a bit shit, you just eat loads of food. And everything I ate tasted absolutely disgusting, and I was washing my mouth out with mouthwash, salt water. I was like brushing my tongue. I was doing everything. So obviously it wasn't really on my tongue. It was something like, I guess, like neurological or something had happened. It was fucking disgusting, like really off-putting and annoying, and I couldn't enjoy any food for all of Sunday. Today I think it's all right. So that was bad. And yeah, we went to get cakes. There's this cake shop we go to, and we really like it in there, but it's fucking weird, man. Like, they're kind of like, they're nice people, but they're weird. They won't throw anything away, so they keep cakes for like a month. There's literally cakes we've seen in there, I'm not exaggerating, for a month. Like, a month. Imagine keeping a cake for that long and serving it to people. There's a couple of times. One time we had a cheesecake from there, and it was so fucking disgusting. We threw it in the bin. It was so old. The fruit sort of sauce on top had just become like a single strip of jelly. It was like congealed, and it was just so fucking old and rancid. And so we like going there, but we have to be really careful about what we order, and we're always very observant to see what's new and what's been there. We keep track of all the cakes, and it's crazy to see how long they keep them for. And then the other day we bought a red velvet cake from there, and we went, they're such weird people, man. We went and we told them, like 2 weeks before, we had a red velvet cake from there, and it was the nicest cake I've ever had. It was like, we couldn't believe how nice this red velvet cake was. Incredible. We went in and we told them, and we were like, that red velvet cake was unfucking believable. So nice. So then we went, last week or whatever, and we saw they had red velvet cake again. We were like, perfect, let's have the red velvet cake. and we ate it, and it tasted like fucking foul. It was it tasted like literally there was like a bottle of vodka in there. My girlfriend thought it tasted like sort of acetone or like nail polish remover or something. It was really foul. It tasted not even like vodka. It tasted like alcohol. Like they put like pure alcohol in there, you know, like it was absolutely disgusting, and we couldn't eat it. And we were a bit worried. We were thinking, why would a red velvet cake taste like that? Was there an accident? You know, is there cleaning chemicals in here or something? What the fuck is it? And I guess it was late, and we started getting a bit freaked out by it, which is probably a bit dumb, you know. But we went the next morning, and we were like, you know, we're a bit disturbed by the red velvet cake you gave us, because it tasted, and they tasted it, and they were like, oh, it's liqueur. We were like, right, it's a red velvet cake, you know, like it's not really supposed to have liqueur, and if it is, it's not supposed to have like a fucking whole bottle. But okay, we didn't say that, we were polite. but we left, and it was a bit awkward, you know. And then on Sunday, the day after our pills, we really wanted to get some cake for that night, and we were super awkward about it. We were like, okay, we have to get ready for this experience, you know, we're going to go in and order cake again for the first time after the incident. And then I was like, this is fucking ridiculous, like that we're building ourselves up to this shouldn't even be a thing. It's a prime example of something, you know, you can be like neurotic about, like dumb social stuff. And it's like, man, people went to war. Like, it's disrespectful. I think it's disrespectful to like our ancestors, you know, to people half my age, literally less than half my age, who fought in World War One. And I'm like, oh man, I hope it's okay when I go to get the cakes. I hope it's not weird. It's like, just shut the fuck up, you know. As a prime example, I think, when you just need to say to yourself, shut the fuck up and be an adult and stop it, because that is a ridiculous thing to even think about. So we did, and went to get the cake. That's the buzzer. I'm gonna go see what that is. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Sorry if you were looking for more of a direct, you know, kind of trip report experience. But yeah, this is kind of how I describe things. I may put like a disclaimer and pin it as the top comment or something. So yeah, thanks for watching. Curious to know if you guys have had any similar experiences, or if any of you have tried this, how you felt about the amphetamine, the stimulant component. And yeah, that's all. I guess these pills aren't available anymore anyway, so, you know, yeah, maybe there won't be as much interest in them, and maybe all of this is kind of irrelevant. But yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Hi guys, a quick addendum to the video. So today is Tuesday. Yesterday we were feeling pretty bad. I think today's Tuesday. Jesus. Yeah, today is Tuesday. We were feeling pretty bad yesterday, like yesterday evening, and kind of feeling sorry for ourselves and thinking, oh God, you know, we fucking took too much or whatever. We're having a bad come down, and doing all the shit we could, you know, taking an NAC and all these supplements and stuff. And then last night we were having a bit of a squabble about something before bed, and we were getting to sleep a bit later, you know, thinking, oh, we're only going to get like 7.5 hours, you know, a normal sleep, as opposed to kind of, you know, an extra long sleep to recover and everything. It was our fault. We were on our phones and shit all night. Anyway, went to sleep. I was having a very bad sleep, one of those like kind of fighting sleeps, you know, you're having some sort of mental dream and you're like fighting with yourself in the night. Then woke up suddenly at like 5 a.m. My girlfriend woke up first. She heard the dog crying, and she was like, what's up? And kind of amazing that she heard it, because she had earplugs in and everything and like the fan on, but she heard it. She's like very in tune with these things. And she heard the dog crying. So we were like, what's up? You know, got up and everything. And the dog wanted to leave the room. So we took her out of the room, and then she looked like, you know, we let her out on the balcony thinking, you know, what's up with her? Thinking we didn't know. And then it was clear she wanted to go outside. So we went to get her outside, and she's still a bit injured. She had this injury a while ago. So we have this thing called a belly band, which is like a kind of strap that goes around, a bit like a sling almost, that goes around her belly, but like a bit, you know, a bit wider. And I went to put that on, and normally it's very loose for her, and it was like so tight it was hard to get it on. Her belly was like massive, you know. And we took her outside, and she was like desperate. I was taking her in the lift, you know. This is 5 a.m. We had to get dressed and everything after a couple of hours of sleep and waking up at 5 a.m. And we had to get dressed and really like hurry to get her outside, because it was clear she was like whimpering. She really wanted to go out. And when we were in the lift, she was like pouring at the door and everything. She was so desperate to go. And she's a really good dog. Like she doesn't want to go indoors, you know. She's very clean. She doesn't want to be messy or anything. And we got outside, and basically immediately as soon as we got outside, she did a mental turd, like an absolutely mental turd. It was like a big turd and then loads of diarrhea on top of the turd. And we were kind of laughing about it, but we were like, fucking hell, this is, you know, like we were already tired. This is rough. And it was really nice out. It was raining, and it was like, you know, obviously it was dark. It was 5 a.m. Well, I guess sometimes it's light at 5 a.m, isn't it? But it was dark and raining, and it was cool. It was nice being outside, actually. It was kind of, and we were sort of, it was a bit funny, you know, what had happened. And also, like, we picked up what we could, but it was quite useful that it was raining, because it washed it away. And we were kind of joking, like, because the dog was quite excited after her turd, and she, like, seemed to want to stay out. She seemed quite enthusiastic to walk. I was sort of joking, like, oh, you know, it'd be nice to just go for a walk now. You know, it's kind of nice out. But we were basically in like pajamas and shit. So we were like, yeah, let's just go home, because, you know, we need to sleep. We can't really have a walk now. But the dog seemed to want to stay out, and she was sort of wagging her tail and seemed, you know, what we perceived as sort of excited. So anyway, we walked just very briefly around the block and took her home and got her all tucked in and everything. And again, feeling a bit sorry for ourselves. Not really. We were sort of seeing the humour in it, but thinking, fucking hell, like, what timing, what incredible timing, you know? And right before, like, the worst day of the come down. And then we went back to sleep. Well, we didn't really. I mean, I didn't really go. It took me fucking ages to go back to sleep. I was, like, wired after that. So I probably didn't get back to sleep until, like, maybe, like, 8 in the morning or something. And then woke up to the sound of my girlfriend immediately getting up. We delayed our alarms as much as we could, you know, with work and everything, and sort of made excuses. So we were going to get up at like 9:45, and woke up to my girlfriend immediately getting up, and I could just hear some sort of fuss going on. And she followed the dog, and then she called me and was like, "Come in," you know, like she shat everywhere. I went into the living room / kitchen. And the dog had like vomited and shat everywhere. It was difficult to tell what was what, actually. I don't know which bits were vomit and which were shit. And she'd vomited and shat everywhere. And it was on the carpets. We have all these, because she slips a lot, because she had this injury and it's a risk for her. So we have to be really careful that she doesn't slip. So we have all these carpets and these rugs everywhere. Like the whole apartment is covered in rugs. It looks insane. We look like crazy people, but we have to make sure, you know, she doesn't slip over, because all the floors in Spain are tiled. So she had shat and vomited all over these rugs. It's very difficult to clean a rug. You know, you can put clothes in the washing machine very easily. A big, thick rug, a long, thick rug is a very different story. So an absolute nightmare. And there were 4 piles of this in separate places on separate parts of the apartment. And she'd done one on the blanket on her bed as well, which we put in the washing machine. And we just checked it. And the washing machine is like filled with lentils and stuff, because she'd had lentils in her food. And it was just all like, after the wash cycle, it was just all still full of all of this like shit and vomit. And Yeah, we're taking care of her now. She's okay now. She's drinking lots of water, and she's normal, and she's been out, and she's been fine. You know, she's gone out without crapping or anything, so she's gotten it all out of her system, and she's hydrating herself again and everything, and seems totally fine. But now we're still in the process. I'm just taking a brief break from the incredibly unpleasant process of cleaning everything on a work day, on a come down, cleaning all the shit and vomit. And well, I guess it goes to show, you know, it can always get worse when you're feeling sorry for yourself on a bad come down, even after having woken up at 5 a.m. to that and having to take the dog out. That is very minor in comparison to waking up, you know, the following day and having to do all of this. And then this is very minor in comparison to all the other things that could happen. So I guess it's a sort of humorous and timely reminder to not take things that happen too seriously, because there's a kind of like, you know, Russian doll kind of level of differing scales of problems, you know, and most of the things that I think like the average person is bothered about on a day-to-day level are like not really that bad, and we make them much worse than they are, and we create problems. I mean, I was thinking that on Monday night. I was thinking, what's the problem here? You know, we're fine, but we're just sort of like, oh, I feel fragile, I feel delicate, I feel sad about drugs. And then really it's like, there was fucking absolutely nothing wrong. We should have been delighted. We should have been just chilling and just enjoying it, and you know, we kind of were. And then even after taking her out last night, you know, that was nothing. And now this is much worse, but it could continue to get much worse. So really, we have to think even this is really ultimately, like, it's not even really. It probably shouldn't even register as a stressful situation, I think, because she's fine. Like, she seems much better, and you know, we're fine. We're like healthy and safe and everything. And so really something like this, I think, should register almost the same as like having to do the dishes. I think it's like, yeah, just, you know, roll your sleeves up and do it. But it's hard not to become very outcome dependent and attached to outcomes and attached to ideas of how things should be, when in reality this is pretty easy. You know, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. And it is fine, really. I mean, we're finding it fine. You know, it's not. It's kind of like it's probably, apart from being exhausting and, you know, I am very tired. Apart from that, it doesn't really feel any different to had this not happened, if you know what I mean. It's more of a practical issue, I guess. So it's almost like a humorous and timely reminder of that most of these things are just minor hurdles and practical issues and setbacks and things you have to just sort of quietly, humbly deal with, and not be a sort of spoiled, demanding brat about, as I have been in the past, and probably you know, an insight into what it's like to have a baby. Although, if I had a baby, I wouldn't be doing. I wouldn't be getting. You know, I wouldn't be having any fun at the weekends. I think, you know, my fun at the weekends would probably be going for a fucking jog and having a fucking, you know, I don't know, ordering fried chicken or something. That would probably be the extent of my fun if we had a baby. And but I guess the accumulative effects of lack of sleep when you have a baby, that's the washing machine smacking into the wall, I better check that in a minute, are effectively like probably being on like the come down from hell. You know, I don't know, I have no idea what it's like, but I gather it's very bad. So useful bit of training. Anyway, again, not relevant to the pills themselves, but just thought I'd update you chaps anyway. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you guys have ever had any similar come down experiences, any horrific timing. Once I'm going to go and check that once. There was something I remembered, but one sec. Oh yeah, I remember. Years ago, so long ago. This is when we were first together, and we lived at my we lived at my parents' place, and we would. This was the beginning of us having a very bad problem with MDMA, a very very unhealthy relationship with MDMA and with one another, and I was doing because I didn't have any fucking jobs or anything really. I did bits of work here and there. I was just a bum, just smoking weed all the time and doing drugs, and refusing to pay any rent to my parents, doing everything I could to avoid it, which for some reason I felt was my birthright. And I excuse the mess, by the way. I'm getting that thing that parents of babies do have, where they're like, sorry, I'm covered in spaghetti. Sorry if that bothers you. They're sort of like resentful. There's this couple over the way that have a baby, and they moved in recently, and we're absolutely convinced that they passive aggressively subject you to the noise of their baby because it makes them feel good, because they're sort of resentful. Like when the baby's the baby's fine actually. They have a toddler and a baby, and the toddler is horrible. The baby's alright, it's just a baby. The toddler is like a demon toddler, and whenever it starts going mental, they bring it outside. They open the doors, like they literally open the doors as wide as they can. It's like, and they're just like, here you go, everybody. And they have that sort of passive aggressive parent thing, where like they're sort of like, excuse me, sorry if this bothers you. They sort of like it. And I'm sort of one sec. Sorry. So yeah, sorry, this is the most disjointed, annoying video ever. I'm sorry. I'll probably receive some hate comments for this one. But what the fuck were we talking about? So I'd arranged to do dog sitting, and we looked after this dog called Lasker, and he was a beautiful dog, Lasker, but he was clearly not comfortable being dog sat, and we arranged, I think, to dog sit for him on a Sunday for the day in my parents' house, and I was tasked with like looking after him, and that she was gonna pick him up, I think maybe that night. Anyway, on the Saturday we decided to do MDMA, and we used to do way too much. We used to buy a gram of just dirty street MDMA and just split it and just finish the whole gram and stay up like all night. Oh god, so disgusting. And makes me gag thinking about it. Yeah, and Gordon Bennett. We did that on Saturday and had like a vicious come down, really bad, and then had to wake up really early to look after this dog. We had to wake up at like 10 to get the dog, and we really didn't want this dog around. This was years ago. We were like 19, we were fucking stupid. We were teenagers literally, and she dropped the dog off, and he was a very beautiful dog, but he was really annoying, and I guess in hindsight he was uncomfortable to be in a strange environment with strange people, and now we would be much better at knowing like how to deal with him, but at the time we just sort of thought this dog is annoying, like this isn't what we thought, because I guess I don't remember, but I probably convinced myself, oh, it'll be fun to have a dog around on the come down, it'll be great, there'll be this cool dog here and that'll be brilliant, and so he was stunning. He was like a kind of I guess one of those kind of sort of wolfish dogs, but like he was very beautiful. He had one of those dogs that had like very light coloured eyes, like sort of blue or sort of kind of like icy kind of eyes, and he had that look in general. He was very striking. Not really like a kind of husky, but something a tiny bit husky adjacent. Very stunning dog. And he kept I think he just kept barking. From what I remember, he just wouldn't stop barking, and like he wouldn't sit down or lie down. He wouldn't relax. We were just thinking, we're really knackered. We need him to just fucking sit down, and we'll just pet him a bit and just sit here, and we can just watch TV or whatever. And he wouldn't. And I remember it got to a point where we were trying to sleep, and he wouldn't stop. and he was like barking at us and sort of like coming up to us and just I don't know what he wanted. He was obviously just uncomfortable, and we were desperate to sleep. We were in like just agony, like trying to like, at one point I remember we were putting our heads under the blanket and trying to like hide from this dog. And he was in the room and we were just like, please, please leave us alone. Like, it was overwhelmingly stressful. And then I remember the owner came to pick him up at about 9 p.m. She was just like a young woman. I don't know why she left her dog with me, to be honest, with me at that age. I just wouldn't leave my dog with anyone apart from a family member anyway. But were I that way inclined and I turned up and saw 19-year-old me, I would have been like, nah, sorry. Like, I was just so scruffy and weird. And she turned up and we were like stinking of weed. We had just been blazing like all day, and she came in the hallway, and you could just tell from her face, she could just smell the whole hallway was filled with weed. And we were just like, all right, here's your dog. And she was like, okay, is everything all right? And we were like, yeah, he's great. There you go. Cheers, bye. And then she just gave us like 20 quid or whatever, and then left. And we just didn't get to sleep until the next night. Oh God, it's just, MDMA abuse is so uniquely disgusting. There's something about it. It's like really, really fucking disgusting. Yeah. So this certainly doesn't compare to that. I will say that for 5-MePB, it's definitely not good to abuse it. You definitely shouldn't abuse it. But I don't find it to be anywhere near as unpleasant to abuse as MDMA. I feel like right now I would be in a much worse mood, in a much worse state, had I abused MDMA in the same fashion at the weekend. So who knows, maybe tomorrow will be a bit worse, given that I did it on Saturday. Usually I think if you do it on Saturday, Wednesday's the worst day. If you do it on Friday, Tuesday's the worst day. But so we did it on Saturday, so tomorrow may well be the worst day. But still, I mean, I didn't sleep last night, and I feel relatively okay today, so that's good. That's all, guys. Yeah, sorry for this video. I would imagine this is absolutely not to some people's tastes, but some people might enjoy it. So apologies if you're in the former camp, and thanks for watching. And like I said, if you ever had any of these extremely badly timed events on a come down or anything like that, or just a particularly vicious come down, I'd be interested to hear. And thanks for watching. Take care, guys.